Alright, hello, welcome back. I'm going to try to speed this up. First things first. So, we got to demo, like, the new, how you set the collision type. So it's just collidable set collision type, and then you give it the type. That's all. Very basic. Alright, now onto the terrain. So I don't know if you noticed, but my thing was using a terrain. Has been for a while now. Terrains are objects that are generated by the engine. They now have a terrain manager. Let's talk about that. The terrain manager acts very similar to all of the other resource managers. To the degree that in the documentation, I actually included terrains in the resources section. So yeah, generates it. This is the texture manager. Um, this is the terrain manager. Silly me. Terrain manager, yep. Yeah, you can tell how similar it is by the fact that they look almost identical. Anyway, so it generates a new terrain. Terrain generation, and here's the terrain model. The model contains just the graphics object, the model, the number of verts, and some information for helping with calculations elsewhere. Here's the terrain generation, very similar to the one that we did in graphics. In fact, it's copy-pasted code with a few alterations. Image width or image size matters. You can't just grab anything because if the pixel width is different, then the terrain will look really wonky. So you gotta be careful with that. But other than that, it's fairly bog standard stuff. Loops through, says what should I be, who should I be attached to, and then gets its own normals. So the first pass is setting its height values, height and position values. The second pass links them all together into squares, into grid. And then here's the bottom part. This is where it gets, yeah, this is where the triangle list is made, which it then creates a new graphics object. You'll note that that says graphics object circle and not texture light or something like that. I'll be getting into that in video 3, the final video, which will be my research project. Other than that, the terrain has a thing for detecting your location in the terrain, getting the height of your location in the terrain, getting the normal of the terrain, and detect a more comprehensive detect location, a collision with the B-sphere, which isn't actually used in the thing. So that's, that's legacy code. Doesn't do anything anymore. Render all was for when you would want to see every single AABB on the terrain, because every single thing has the data to create an AABB. They do not contain AABBs themselves. Instead, they are kind of figured out by the visualizer. So, the deletion of the terrain happens, well, because the terrain manager is a big ol' just resource manager. It hands out the terrains. So we can see that in the scene demo. The scene demo has a pointer for a terrain. It's looking for one, and you get it by simply asking the terrain manager for it. Then, at the end of the life cycle for the terrain manager, just like everything else, it deletes it. That's not where it deletes. It's deleted. Yep, delete map. So you can only have, well, you can have more than one terrain in your scene. Theoretically, you shouldn't. But that's beside the point. So I already talked about collision with terrain in the last video. I doubt you want me to go back over that. I already mentioned the methods that you can use to get to pump information out of the terrain, with the more convenient location for those being, yeah, get height, get normal, get vert data, and the two variants of detecting location. Oh, that's right. So this detect location is you give it your position. This one is what is your B-sphere. That's the difference between those two. So that's an overloaded function. My bad. I did not specify that well enough. Yes, but the terrain, that is really all that I have for the terrain. So, while we're on this, let's discuss something else. The documentation. I mentioned it before. Show and explore. So, updated in the information, mainly in the API. So, alarmable, collidable, drawable, inputable, updatable. Scene stuff, light stuff, which I'll be getting into later. But yes, for now, we have a light. And resources has now been updated with terrain, and image was there last time, with terrain. But all of the other stuff is all still here. And yeah. That is all for the thing right now. That's all for the terrain right now. And when I return, let's see. Yes, so oh, right. So for the terrain model, yes. A lot of this stuff isn't stored. A lot of the data isn't stored. The only stored data is the model itself and the vertices are kept for the purposes of calculation. But yes, that is all for now. That is all for this. And I will see you in the final part where I will be talking about my research project.